Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with Jide. Here we talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show, let's get ready for battle. That's NLC President Joe Ajaero telling Nigerians, saying hunger, poverty defy ethnic, religious boundaries. And later on the show, Obi warns against distracting judiciary as Labour says sacking Tinubu won't lead to anarchy. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. It's important to mention that we can only read comments from whose names are clear and are about the issues discussed. I have joining me via Zoom the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. It's good to see you, BKO.
Good evening, Ibrahim. Good to do this with you again.
Great. So let's get talking. The Labour leader, Joe Ajaero, urged Nigerians to get ready for battle and join hands with them in their plan to build a coalition of all Nigerian people because hunger and poverty transcend ethnic and religious boundaries. What's your reading of Mr. Ajaero's call?
I think Ajaero does not pretend that he does not see this administration as capable of solving the problems. For those who, from the get-go, believe that it made sense to remove subsidy, as far as I'm concerned, coming out to oppose subsidy after it inflicted pain and after its removal inflicted pain and pushed more Nigerians into poverty is, as far as I'm concerned, high-level hypocrisy. Many people supported the removal of subsidy, but they should have known that removing subsidy will come with tremendous cost. Now, Ajaero wants Nigerians to see confronting this regime because of the reforms that it has come up with as a national exercise. As far as it's concerned, this is not purely for Labour alone. And he does not believe that the government has any desire to alleviate the pains of the ordinary Nigerian. As far as it's concerned, this government is like a strange strain of Robin Hood that robs the poor to give to the rich. The Robin Hood that everyone is familiar with robs the rich to give to the poor. But Ajaero wants us to believe that this government robs the poor, denies the poor those things that they should be benefiting from, and then decides to enrich the poor. Listen to what he said there. He said, I think they have to buy more bulletproof vehicles for the rich to move around, because when the people cannot get food to eat, they will run to the streets. They are taking away all that the people are trying to benefit from, and they are giving it to the rich. All that the people are trying to benefit from, giving it to the rich. He also said that the government has been playing games with the Nigerian people. Labour is still in talks with the federal government. Remember, after the subsidy removal and the consequential adjustment in fuel prices, Ajaero made it clear that the NLC would not negotiate with government, would not go back to its meeting with government unless government reverted to the old petroleum prices. Of course, that would have been ridiculous. Government did not revert to the old prices because government was not going to allow itself to be stampeded to go back to the way things used to be. It is unfortunate that many Nigerians wanted subsidy removed because the removal of subsidy was meant to save us from fiscal disaster, fiscal collapse. We were finding it difficult to pay our bills. Yeah, we were even taking loans to pay subsidy bills. But we have to admit to ourselves that the removal of subsidy has pushed more and more Nigerians into poverty. It has brought about greater hunger in our country, and it has led to anger on the streets of our country. No one can deny that except a fool. But this is not the time to make it look like, oh, this is a wicked government. Oh, what this government came to do was simply to inflict pain on the Nigerian people. Sanusi Lamido, the former emir of Kano, said it clearly that the step that the government needed that anybody taking over power needed to take strong decisions, and that at the beginning it will be very painful. We've seen Kenyans too hit the streets protesting over the reforms that President Ruto has come up with. No one should expect that removing subsidy will not inflict pain on our people. Of course, it's going to remove subsidy. And after the removal, of course, going to inflict pain. And after the removal of subsidy, to imagine that we will still be fixing prices, it's ridiculous. Once you've removed subsidy, you've left everything in the hands of market forces. That's the way it's been with other products that have had subsidy removed. Diesel, kerosene, jet A1, aviation fuel, and the rest of them. So insisting that they should go back to the old prices is ridiculous. Nobody will be able to do that. Even the law, by passing the PIA, we already made up our minds that we are going to do away with subsidy, because that law itself prescribed that market forces should determine prices. And it was envisaged that once we are able to do that, there will be greater investment in the sector, because it was reasoned that regulating the sector hampered greater investment by foreign companies into the sector. In fact, some of them were leaving the country as a result of the dagger of the regulation that was on their heads, and the fact that oil theft had become so rampant. So removing subsidy has its own advantages, just as it has its own disadvantages. Now we can see that more states are earning more money from the distributable revenue from the center. That is FAC. 1.955 trillion was generated in 1 month. We've never had it like that. But the state and the government, the 3 tiers of government agreed that, okay, let us keep some of the money, in an infrastructure fund, so that we can then use that to mitigate the impact of subsidy. There is nothing like going back on the removal of subsidy. Subsidy has been removed. Those who have been feeding fat from it for years, there's nothing they can do at this stage. Countries close to Nigeria, our neighbors that have been benefiting from it, now they have to buy petrol based on prices determined by market forces. No more subsidy on petrol. What government needs to do, and do quickly, is to come up with measures that will help ease the pain on our people. And I've been saying repeatedly that if government is serious, this is the time to set up service centers for people to be able to convert their gasoline-fed vehicles to compressed natural gas-fired engines, because it is way cheaper. According to people, it is about 60% cheaper than the prevailing fuel prices. So it will make even transportation much more affordable to our people. And transporters will find it more convenient to fuel their cars with liquefied petroleum gas and compressed natural gas, because those are far cheaper alternatives to petrol. That is what we should be doing. I'm happy that Ogun State has begun that, working with a group of Indians to set up centers where people can have their cars converted to compressed natural gas fired engines. You know, once this is done, it will be way more accessible than what we have now. One of the ways by which our people are suffering tremendously during this period is because of high cost of transportation. And high cost of transportation is also impacting on food prices. So we are facing real problem of food security because of the cost of fueling cars and buses. Then we need to buy a lot more buses. Let's have a situation in which each state of our country, if we can buy like 8,000 buses, share these 8,000 buses to the 3 tiers of government, 60-seater buses running on compressed natural gas or liquefied petroleum gas, very cheap. Our people will be moved around more efficiently and at a very low cost. We've got to do something about rising fuel prices, because we cannot determine prices at this stage. NNPC has issued licenses to not less than 20 importers. We've seen one of the importers bring in about 25 million liters in the past week. So we need to bring in those buses, push those buses out, let them run on compressed natural gas, which is way cheaper than petrol, and then they will be able to charge commuters far lower rates than they are being charged at this time, and making life difficult for our people.